Oh, looks
Hi,
like I have to leave the meeting.
Hi, Thomas.
Hello,
Welcome.
mother.
Hello, Tom. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for agreeing to come on and have
Of
like
course.
yes, thank you, son, and have a conversation with me. So let me just kind of say real briefly what my channel is and what it's about and my ambition. I kind of do that with every video. So essentially, it's about transformation. And for me, what that is sort of a reflection of my life, like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And what I always like to say about that is that I've spent the majority of my life unsatisfied with the journey and the process, not really understanding or knowing how to embrace that journey or process. And in hindsight, now what I realize is that that process was all a part of the transformation and, you know, essential and necessary to the things I had to go through for the changes that needed to happen relative to my character and all of that. Now that doesn't take away from the fact that there was a lot of pain involved in that journey, but I've also learned how to embrace that. So anyway, that's what my channel is about. And it's kind of about so much more.
Right.
Some of the things that that I've been, um, on the journey of with just peace of mind, inner peace, inner transformation, all those things. But one of the biggest things that has happened for me is that I am a recovering person and that I got sober and in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I just had my 11-year anniversary. And so the reason why I wanted to get on and chat it up with you is because, I don't know, we've been having some coffee time and some, kind of heart conversations that have made me think about how sort of oblivious or checked out I've been or was, to how I showed up in those days when you were growing up, and also that you were um you're not alone as far as kids that are affected by their parents and the decisions their parents make and the choices that they make, and
Sure.
addiction. So I guess one of the things that I'm curious and would want to ask, maybe that could be helpful for somebody who's tuning in to our conversation, is how do you feel like you know my life affected you in terms of that, like relative to being an alcoholic primarily?
Yeah. Well, I think of when I think of my childhood, I always have a really positive outlook, and I spent a lot of time doing stuff and hanging out with friends, and I think too, like getting older, you kind of start to see some of that stuff, and like maybe, I always thought you were very sweet and tender with me, but like I I know that I chatted with like Taylor where and like about some of that stuff too, and maybe she didn't feel that as much. And yeah, like looking back at some of it, I feel that sometimes like when you're a kid, you want attention. Like you don't know that until like you get older and you start to understand that like you desire those things from your parents and to like want to spend time. And we did, but sometimes like looking back, I feel like I learned to just be like, oh, well, she'll get me stuff, and like to kind of like get me out of
Manipulate.
the way in a sense, like not knowing in my heart, like, yeah, getting stuff is fun when you're a kid, but also like like I said, you can't run away from that innate nature that like you want the attention and the time spent, essentially. So like I could say maybe that in that aspect. But
Yeah.
like I said, for me too, I always kind of felt more of like the loving aspect from like you. But when I think about where me and my dad's relationship landed to, like we spent more time doing stuff, and I think I desired like doing that. Like I really held on to those moments, like going to Applebee's and stuff, like little stuff like that was really special to me. So I think that like I definitely probably, would have wanted that more, like more moments and times that we spent doing that. And I
Yeah.
think like I always found joy and like just even like I used to enjoy it, even now as an adult, like, with ladies that I've talked to. Like I enjoy going shopping with them, but I feel like that was because like as a kid, you love to shop and I like loved being around you. So like for me, that was something I learned to like find the joy in, where I wish that maybe we had like more moments that weren't central around some of that stuff, that were like their own individual moments in itself. So yeah, maybe something like
That's
that. But
yeah, that's interesting. And so yeah, I mean, it's kind of your dad was also a recovering person at that time as well. So we were both two people that were um, started out in recovery. And I can only speak to myself. I know that for me, I did not stay sober. I was sober probably the first 6 years or thereabouts, and then I kind of went off the deep end again, and that was a slow progression of what that looked like. And so it brings me back, and it's really cool, Thomas, because it's a reflection of you and who you are as a man today, that you strive to look at, like, you know take the positive into your present so that you can pull that into your future. And
mhm.
we tell ourselves a lot of stories from our past that you know they're stories. And I think one of the biggest or most difficult things that I recall that I did to you guys as a whole was that I walked out on you guys and I left you guys. And it wasn't,
Yeah.
in my mind, at that time, what was going on is that I wanted to drink the way I wanted to drink. I didn't want to be told. And I was completely, the disease of alcoholism is a very self-centered, selfish thing.
For
But but
sure.
in my mind, how I justified it is in my mind, I wasn't walking out on my kids. I was walking out on your dad. But inadvertently,
Yeah.
I walked out on all of you guys. And I have no doubt in my mind that there was a lot of pain involved in that. And I know that I, in my sobriety, made my amends to you guys and wrote those things out. But it's just really interesting, the person that you are today, in spite of me, essentially. And I think
Yeah.
I tie that back to, I really have my whole life had a big, huge heart for God, and I raised you guys, in that way. And today I see that you guys have that relationship, which, I do feel like is a piece of it, and some saving grace as far as, being
For
able to
sure.
heal.
Yeah, and that process is, looking different and it's ever changing. And I think like that's probably the biggest in terms of like where I feel like I was affected. Just that time was so difficult as a whole. And then for like that to kind of happen on top of it,
Yeah.
I think forgiveness for me has been huge getting older. Like how and what does that look like within our relationship? Because I think I've resented you for a lot of it, blamed you for a lot of it. And I mean, knowing good and well, that relationships are two components and it takes two to tango. It's never really one's fault, but you don't understand that during that time. So having to like deal with that and getting older, I think finding the forgiveness has been really where the truth lies. And then moving forward, what does a relationship with my mother now look like as I'm going forward, because it's going to be different. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that having to heal from that and understand, and having that understanding and forgiving you guys, like, hey, you're human on this earth trying to figure it out, and no one's perfect in any moment. So, I've really held on to that, and it's just giving me a lot of peace in the sense of like now I feel like okay, what what is our relationship look like going forward in terms of how do we build on that? And
Yeah, and
kind of like you're
I
saying, like
think,
even just those coffee times and having those chats has just been really good.
you know what I think is super cool though, is that that word forgiveness, which carries so much power. And it's
Yeah.
kind of the opposite
Well,
of
freedom too, I think
freedom.
huge because you don't want to walk around. And the sad thing is that, I resented you, which in turn turned into like looking at other women that way too. And so like, I feel bad, that there's a lot of people that were affected by that. You know what I mean? And it's you don't want that, I think. And then my heart doesn't want that for other people, of course. Um,
That's really, really good, because here's the thing with that word, forgiveness. It is the opposite of bitterness and resentment. And it's like,
right.
how does one get from that place to that place of forgiveness? Because here's what happens with forgiveness is that you're walking out a journey of restoration, as opposed to like
Hmm.
constantly seething and harboring, ill feelings and negative emotions, which have, those things have such a huge impact on you, on your body physiologically, when you carry them around. And
Right.
I do think that that's been instrumental in our relationship, is on both ends. I've had a lot of things that I've had to heal from and understand that are not even, have nothing to do with, you guys. And then, from my own childhood, this stuff can be very generational, unfortunately. And so, the cool part is that, spending that time, and I know we've gone to dinners and
Hmm.
had conversations, and have spent that time. And there have been times where you've shared things with me that have been hard for me to hear, and in the sense that you'll tell me something like when you were talking about you and Brandon, and then I was left with that feeling of, I first off, the beauty is that I can sit with you and literally hear you, and no matter what that does for me, I can accept it, and I can say,
Right.
and I can acknowledge that it makes me sad to think back that I was so checked out in some way, shape, or form. Like, I didn't know you guys were, pounding the crap out of each other. I thought it was always wrestling, but where you said to me it was
Yeah.
abusive. But um,
No, and that's like because the reality is that like yeah, brothers do that and boys are gonna do that, and there was a lot of fun and joy, but it was excessive, in a way that like
yeah,
looking back at it, I thought that was normal, and a lot of that stuff was not normal, and realizing that like just checking myself with my own heart and where my heart lied. Like I didn't, I ended up loving that, like thinking that was the way to like love people when I like, I never really felt that way in my heart, but because of the way that was transpiring, that's how it came out. My
right.
other relationships with like my friends and stuff. So, but yeah, I never, no, I agree. I think that's great that, and that's, I think, a growth element in itself in our relationship that,
Yes.
and I've yeah, and vice versa, being able to listen to what you have to say and understand like even how I'm feeling in the inside, it's okay. We can work through it and I can, work through those emotions within myself. So,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
like,
I never wanted to like, I'm glad because I don't say that stuff, I say that in openness and just that was my experience and perspective of what was going on. I don't want to like guilt you in any way, shape, or form, or make you feel bad like you were like it was your fault because I had no phone. Well, it wasn't. Like we talked. Brandon was going
I
through his own stuff as well.
yeah, he was. And just to clarify that, that's your brother, and that's your brother that passed away, actually. So just, I think
Right.
I also shared that on this channel. I mean, I have 4 kids, and Brandon's the oldest, and he's your brother, and he did pass away. So there, it kind of compounds, like, I don't know, just the dynamic of that, I guess. When you lose someone too, I mean, there's just so many
Mhm.
feelings and emotions that swirl around. But anyway, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that you could talk about that and share that because, like I said, I think that is where transformation and growth happens, is in that uncomfortable space that nobody likes to go to, right? It's like those places, those
sure, yeah.
conversations, those moments, those times. It's like, we don't, I don't know. There's something about human nature that's like, doesn't like change, doesn't want to, feel the hard stuff, when in fact, that's where the real transformation is happening. And you're moving out of, you know, a form of bondage. Like you said, Thomas, freedom. Like, what kind of power is in that? You know,
Yeah. Well, couple things. What's good is, and I'm still struggling to like stay consistent, and it's because it's a constant, ever changing process. And like you said, it's tough. It's easier to run, but I think we discussed this too, and run from that stuff. But doing that is, pain in itself, and it's kind of like, right, when I like a lot of the same stuff applies in life, like working out. Your muscles, when they hurt, you get that hurt feeling. It's like that pain is gain. You're growing, and that's kind of how it is too, with, I think, dealing with like mental and emotional stuff. Is like, it's hard. It's much more difficult, to like go through that and feel that, and acknowledge those things, because it hurts ultimately. And like, we discussed it, running from it is the easiest
yeah.
usually.
Or self-medicating or whatever
Yeah,
everybody does,
right.
right? To
Yeah,
escape.
and I
Yeah,
know that all too
sometimes
well.
escape, but yeah, I don't know. I think that you continue to impress me with your
Yeah.
type of wisdom that you have
Oh, thank you.
for such a handsome young man at the age of 27 years old. And
I need to get
to
a
me,
haircut, but
I love it. You be you, Thomas. That's the best
yeah,
place to be. But what's crazy is, like, to me, when I see you, when I hear you, when I experience your presence, because that's your vibe, that's your essence, your
mhm,
heart and your spirit come out. And I really
yeah.
do feel incredibly proud for the
Oh,
young
thanks.
man that
No,
you
that feels
are.
good.
Yeah, because it really is true. And I mean, I can say that about your sisters too, Julia and Taylor. I mean, they all seem to have those deeper, abilities with their intuitions and their
For
wisdom
sure.
and
Yeah.
all of that. And so I'm really excited to, really invite you guys into this experience, because my goal and my ambition is to really, help others. Because one of the things with what we're talking about, Tom, like the pain and all this stuff that's happened, is that I don't feel like what I've gone through is in vain, what you've gone through is in vain, or anyone in our family, the types of things that we've experienced, to where we
Mhm.
can't, freely give that back in such a way that it's going to help somebody. And I think these
Right.
conversations.
That's all I was gonna say. I think the cool thing is, and what I love about it the most, is that I've heard about it, and that it's actually becoming a thing of action, which I think that's where all the power is in, is taking action and doing. And yeah, I think if even one person, it helps one person, to, sharing your experiences with such, and if it helps, I mean, it's worth it at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So I think it's super
Exactly.
cool.
Yeah. So anyway, it's pretty
There's
awesome.
my
And
kitty.
huh? Yeah.
There's my kitty. He's something to
Yeah,
sing.
you do love pets, don't you, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're therapeutic for sure. But yeah, so hopefully we can revisit. I'll try to, you know, think of some good conversations that maybe we can have between us going forward. And
Yeah, the list I think is endless, and I think what would be cool too, Ma, is that what would be cool is if, down the line, 6 months time, 12 months time, to go back and see, like, revisit, like, even this conversation, and then to like have it come back, in 6 months, and see where you've progressed and staying consistent within your vision for what you wanted, and in your channel and such, was, because consistency is, of course, key with that. And so to to come back and to revisit and to see the growth, I think will be really, really cool. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
And
love it.
then, you know, go
I love
back and yeah, explore, yeah, and see, even just the change in, our lives.
Cool. Cool. Well, thank you, Tom, for chatting it up with me for
Hmm.
tonight. And I'm sure we will have a continuation of part two or part three here going on. But it's been awesome, and I will
Cool.
keep you
Thanks for
posted,
having me
son.
on. I
Yes,
appreciate you and I
absolutely.
love you and
Love you,
extremely proud.
love you too, son. You're an awesome
All right, I'll
young
talk to you
man.
soon.
All right, love you.
Okay.